The sound of Jamie's crying echoed off the peeling wallpaper of our tiny apartment, bouncing between the thin walls like a desperate Morse code. 3 a.m. again. The third night this week. My eyes burned as I fumbled in the dark, my bare feet padding across the cold linoleum. "Shh, baby, Mommy's here," I whispered, lifting my 8-month-old son from his second-hand crib. His tiny body trembled against mine, warm and damp with sweat. The faint scent of baby powder and the sweet milk smell of his breath filled my nostrils as I pressed my lips to his forehead. No fever, thank God. Just another tooth pushing through his tender gums. I swayed back and forth in the patch of silver moonlight cutting through the thin curtains, feeling the weight of exhaustion pressing down on my shoulders like concrete. Single motherhood wasn't what I'd planned. None of this was. Not the cramped one-bedroom apartment in the forgotten corner of the city. Not the 3 jobs I juggled just to keep a roof over our heads. Not the father who vanished the moment I told him I was pregnant. "We're okay," I murmured, more to myself than to Jamie, who was finally settling against my shoulder. "We're going to be just fine." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. The truth was hidden in the stack of past-due notices on the kitchen counter, in the empty refrigerator save for a half-gallon of milk and some baby food, in the $27 left in my bank account that needed to stretch until payday, still 4 days away. I slid down the wall onto the floor, cradling Jamie against my chest, and reached for my phone. 3:15 in the morning was as good a time as any to sort through the waitressing jobs on the employment app. My day job as a receptionist at Archer Medical Plaza barely covered rent, and my weekend shifts at the diner had been cut back. I needed something to fill the gap, even if it meant more hours away from Jamie, more money spent on the sitter. My thumb scrolled mindlessly through listings, each one blurring into the next, when a text from Melissa, my closest friend and sometimes babysitter, caught my eye. "Did you call that number I sent you? The restaurant is hiring and the tips are insane. You could make in one night what you make in a week at that greasy diner." I hadn't called. The restaurant, Elysium, was the kind of place where the wealthy went to see and be seen. The kind of place that wouldn't look twice at a sleep-deprived single mother with perpetually stained fingernails and drugstore makeup. But desperation has a way of silencing pride. With Jamie still nestled against me, his breathing now deep and even, I opened my voice recorder app. I'd send Melissa a message explaining that I'd call tomorrow, ask her if she could put in a good word. My thumb hovered over the record button as Jamie shifted, letting out a soft whimper before settling again. "Mel, hey, it's me," I whispered, conscious of Jamie's finally peaceful state. "I'll call that restaurant tomorrow. I need to know if they're really okay with my situation. Jamie, and the hours, you know? I can't afford to lose another job if they decide a single mom is too much trouble." I paused, swallowing the knot in my throat. Things are tight right now, really tight. I'm scared, Mel. The landlord's threatening eviction, and Jamie's dad is still ghosting me on child support. I don't know how much longer I can. Jamie stirred again, releasing a louder whimper, and I stopped recording, soothing him with gentle pats on his back. When he settled, I finished my thought. "Anyway, call me when you can. Love you." I hit stop and, squinting in the dim light, tapped to send the voice message. Only when I looked back at the screen did my stomach drop to the floor. I hadn't sent it to Melissa. In my exhaustion, I'd sent the desperate confession to an unknown number, one I'd called earlier that day about a private catering job posting I'd found online. No, I whispered, frantically tapping at my phone, searching for a way to unsend the message. But the status already showed, delivered. Heat rushed to my face as embarrassment flooded through me. A stranger now knew my pathetic situation, had heard my baby's cries, my trembling voice confessing my failures. With shaking fingers, I typed out a quick apology. "I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore my previous message." I set the phone down, pressing my forehead against Jamie's soft hair, inhaling his scent to calm my racing heart. It didn't matter. Just some random person who'd never hire me now anyway. Just another door closing in my face. My phone buzzed, the screen illuminating the darkened room. "A reply already? At 3 a.m? Your voice message was received. The position is still available. Be at Elysium tomorrow, 4 p.m. sharp. Ask for Dominic. Bring your son if necessary. I stared at the message, reading it once, twice, a third time. The catering job posting hadn't mentioned Elysium. It had been for a private event at an undisclosed location. And how did they know about the restaurant position? A cold, prickling sensation crawled up my spine. Another message appeared. And Elena? Your financial troubles are about to end. My blood turned to ice. I never mentioned my name in the voice message. Sleep evaded me for the remainder of the night. Jamie eventually drifted off in his crib, while I sat cross-legged on my bed, the glow of my laptop illuminating my face as I searched for any information about Elysium and its owner. The restaurant was exclusive, as I'd suspected. Reservations required months in advance, no prices listed on the menu. If you had to ask, you couldn't afford it, and a strict dress code. The owner wasn't mentioned anywhere, just a parent company called Sartori Enterprises. When the first gray light of dawn filtered through my curtains, I'd made my decision. I would go to Elysium at 4. Not because of the mysterious text messages, but because I couldn't afford not to pursue any job opportunity. I'd simply clarify the confusion, apologize for the misdirected message, and hopefully interview for the waitressing position Melissa had mentioned. The day passed in a blur of routine, dropping Jamie at Mrs. Patel's apartment downstairs, rushing to catch the bus to the medical plaza, answering phones with a plastic smile, eating a granola bar at my desk instead of lunch to save money. By the time I picked up Jamie and returned to our apartment to prepare for the interview, my nerves were frayed. What does Mommy wear to meet a mysterious stranger who knows her name? I asked Jamie, who gurgled happily from his bouncy seat as I tore through my limited wardrobe. I settled on my one decent outfit, a simple black dress that could pass for professional or cocktail attire depending on accessories. The hem was slightly frayed, but perhaps no one would notice. I arrived at Elysium at 3:55 p.m., pushing Jamie's stroller through the crisp autumn air. The restaurant was housed in a renovated historic building, its facade elegant with clean lines and subtle lighting. Even from the outside, it exuded exclusivity. A doorman in a tailored suit stood at attention, his eyes scanning me from head to toe as I approached. "I'm here to see Dominic," I said, hating the tremor in my voice. "I have an appointment at 4. The doorman's expression didn't change, but he nodded once and opened the door. "They're expecting you, Ms. Riley, my last name." Now they knew my last name too. The unease that had been simmering all day threatened to boil over, but I pushed Jamie's stroller through the door anyway, desperation a more powerful motivator than fear. The interior of Elysium was breathtaking, soaring ceilings with crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and plush velvet seating in deep jewel tones. The air smelled of expensive cologne and truffle oil. A hostess in a sleek black dress approached immediately. "Ms. Riley, welcome to Elysium." Her smile was practiced, professional. "Mr. Sartori is waiting for you in the private dining room. Please follow me." Mr. Sartori? Not Dominic? I followed her through the nearly empty restaurant. They probably wouldn't open to the public until later. My heart hammering against my ribs. The wheels of Jamie's stroller squeaking slightly on the marble floor. The hostess led me to a door at the back of the main dining area, knocked once, and then opened it, gesturing for me to enter. "Mr. Sartori, Ms. Riley has arrived." I stepped into what appeared to be a private dining room, elegant and intimate with a single table set for 2 in the center. And there, standing with his back to me, looking out a large window that overlooked the city, was a man. He turned slowly, and my breath caught in my throat. He was younger than I'd expected, perhaps in his early 30s, with dark hair cut short and expensive looking. He wore a tailored suit that accentuated broad shoulders and a lean frame, but it was his eyes that captured me. Dark and intense. They seemed to look through me rather than at me. There was something dangerous in that gaze, something that made me want to grab Jamie and run. "Elena Riley," he said, my name rolling off his tongue like he was tasting it. His voice was deep, with the faintest trace of an accent I couldn't place. "At last we meet." Jamie chose that moment to let out a soft babble, drawing the man's attention to the stroller. Something flashed across his face, an emotion too quick to identify, before his expression smoothed into a mask of polite interest. "And this must be James," he said, stepping closer to the stroller, close enough that I caught the scent of his cologne. Something woodsy and expensive. He peered down at Jamie, who stared back with wide, curious eyes. "He has your eyes." A chill ran through me. "How do you know my son's full name?" The man, Mr. Sartori, straightened and smiled, though the expression didn't reach his eyes. "Please, sit down. We have much to discuss." He gestured to one of the chairs at the table. "I believe you sent me a voice message last night by mistake about your situation." I remained standing, one hand gripping the stroller handle so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Who are you? And how do you know so much about me?" "My name is Dominic Sartori. I own this restaurant, among other businesses." He moved to the table, pulling out a chair for me. "And as for how I know about you, Elena, let's just say I make it my business to know everything about people who interest me." "And why would I interest you?" My voice sounded stronger than I felt. His dark eyes held mine, unblinking. "That voice message, your desperation, your son's cry." He paused, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "And the mention of Jamie's father ghosting on child support. Tell me, what's his name? This man who abandoned his responsibilities?" The conversation had taken a turn I hadn't anticipated. "I don't see how that's relevant to a job interview." A smile played at the corners of Dominic's mouth. "This isn't a job interview, Elena. At least, not for a waitressing position." He finally sat down, motioning again for me to do the same. "Please, sit. I have a proposition for you that will solve all your financial problems." Against my better judgment, I sat, pulling Jamie's stroller close to my side. "What kind of proposition?" "I need someone I can trust for a particular role in my organization. Someone desperate enough to be loyal, smart enough to learn quickly, and with enough at stake to never betray me." His gaze flickered to Jamie, then back to me. "Your accidental message convinced me you might be that person." My pulse quickened. "What organization? What role?" "Sartori Enterprises has diverse interests," he said smoothly. "The position would be as my personal assistant, handling sensitive matters, scheduling, some travel arrangements. The pay is $50,000 more per year than you're currently making across all three of your jobs combined." I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "How do you know what I make?" "As I said, I make it my business to know." He leaned forward slightly. "You'd have comprehensive health care for both you and Jamie, a car and driver at your disposal, a new apartment in a building I own, rent-free." The offer was so outrageous, so unexpected, that I almost laughed. "Why would you offer all that to a complete stranger?" "You're not a complete stranger anymore, Elena," he said softly. "I heard your voice in the middle of the night. I heard your fear for your child's future. I respect that kind of raw honesty." I wanted to believe him, wanted desperately to accept what he was offering, but suspicion nagged at me. "What's the catch?" "Absolute loyalty and discretion," he replied without hesitation. "And one more thing." His expression hardened, something cold and dangerous flickering behind his eyes. "I want the name of your son's father, the man who abandoned you both." The request sent a shiver down my spine. "Why?" Dominic Sartori's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Let's just say I have a particular dislike for men who don't fulfill their obligations." He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table to me. "Think about my offer. Call that number when you've decided." As I reached for the card, his fingers brushed against mine, sending an unexpected jolt of electricity up my arm. Our eyes met, and for a brief moment, I glimpsed something possessive in his gaze, something that made my heart race for reasons I didn't want to examine. "Why me?" I whispered. He stood, buttoning his jacket with an elegant flick of his wrist. "Sometimes, Elena, the right person comes into your life at exactly the right moment." His eyes dropped to Jamie, who was watching him with curious eyes. "Or perhaps it's the wrong moment, for all the right reasons." I left Elysium with his business card burning a hole in my pocket and the uncanny feeling that my accidental voice message hadn't been an accident at all, but the first step down a path I couldn't see the end of, a path Dominic Sartori had somehow been waiting for me to take. 3 days passed before I called the number on Dominic Sartori's card. 3 days of weighing impossible options while staring at past due notices. 3 days of watching Jamie sleep and wondering what kind of mother considers working for a man who sends chills down her spine just by looking at her. The deciding factor came in the form of an eviction notice slipped under my door on the 3rd morning, giving me 72 hours to pay in full or vacate. I sat on the floor of my apartment, Jamie crawling over my legs as I dialed the number with trembling fingers. It rang only once. "Elena." Dominic's voice came through immediately, as if he'd been waiting by the phone. Not a question, but a statement of certainty. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't call." My voice caught in my throat. I closed my eyes, picturing Jamie homeless, pictured us sleeping in my rusted-out car. "I'm interested in your offer. Good." The satisfaction in his voice was palpable. "Pack essential items for yourself and Jamie. My driver will collect you in an hour. The rest of your belongings will be moved tomorrow." "An hour?" I glanced wildly around the apartment. "I haven't even given notice at my jobs. I can't just—" "All taken care of," he interrupted smoothly. "Archer Medical Plaza has received your resignation letter, effective immediately. The diner as well." A chill ran through me. "You had no right." "I had every confidence in your decision, Elena." His tone left no room for argument. 1 hour. Pack light. The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at my phone, my heart hammering against my ribs. What had I just agreed to, and how had he already arranged my resignations? As if my acceptance was a foregone conclusion. Jamie pulled himself up on the coffee table, babbling happily, oblivious to the crossroads we'd just passed. I scooped him up, breathing in his sweet scent, letting it center me. "It's just a job," I whispered to him. "Just a very strange, very well-paying job." The driver arrived exactly 1 hour later, a stern-faced man in a dark suit who introduced himself only as Gray. He loaded our 2 suitcases into the trunk of a sleek black sedan with tinted windows while I secured Jamie's car seat. The interior of the car smelled of expensive leather and faintly of the same cologne Dominic wore. "Where are we going?" I asked, as Gray pulled away from the curb. "Mr. Sartori has arranged accommodations for you and your son in the Archer building," he answered, his eyes meeting mine briefly in the rearview mirror. "It's one of his residential properties." The Archer building. Even I knew of it. A high-rise luxury apartment building downtown, where penthouses reportedly sold for 8 figures. I swallowed hard, looking out the window as my old neighborhood disappeared behind us. "Your apartment has been furnished according to Mr. Sartori's specifications," Gray continued. "If anything isn't to your liking, a decorator can make adjustments tomorrow." I didn't respond, too overwhelmed by the speed at which my life was changing. Jamie babbled in his car seat beside me, reaching for my hand. I gave him my finger to hold, drawing comfort from his tiny grip. The Archer building rose 40 stories into the sky, all glass and steel in modern angles. A doorman rushed to open the car door when we arrived. Another appeared to help with our luggage, and a concierge greeted me by name in the marble-floored lobby. "Ms. Riley, welcome to the Archer. I'm Phillips, the head concierge. Mr. Sartori has instructed me to provide you with everything you need." He led us to a private elevator at the back of the lobby, using a key card to summon it. "You're in apartment 3801, the entire 38th floor." My jaw dropped. "The entire floor?" Phillips nodded as if this were perfectly normal. "Mr. Sartori thought you and young Master James would appreciate the space." The elevator doors opened directly into the apartment, and I stepped out into what felt like another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. The open-concept living area was larger than my entire previous apartment, furnished with sleek, modern pieces that somehow managed to look both expensive and comfortable. The kitchen gleamed with stainless steel appliances and marble countertops. "The nursery is this way," Phillips said, leading me down a hallway. "Mr. Sartori had it specially prepared." The nursery took my breath away, painted a soft blue with stars on the ceiling. It contained a handcrafted wooden crib, a plush rocking chair, and shelves filled with books and toys. A state-of-the-art baby monitor sat on a dresser fully stocked with diapers, clothes, and everything Jamie could possibly need. "This is—" I couldn't find words. "Mr. Sartori will be arriving at 7 for dinner," Phillips informed me, handing over a key card. The refrigerator and pantry have been stocked. If you need anything at all, press 1 on any of the house phones. After he left, I stood in the middle of the massive living room, Jamie balanced on my hip, both of us staring out at the city spread below us like a carpet of lights in the gathering dusk. "What have I gotten us into, Jamie?" I whispered. As if in answer, my phone buzzed with a text message. "I trust the apartment meets with your approval. I'll bring dinner at 7. No need to dress formally. DS." I spent the next hour exploring our new home. 3 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom, a home office, a laundry room, even a small gym. The master bedroom held a king-sized bed with the softest sheets I'd ever touched, and a walk-in closet already filled with clothes in my size, price tags removed but designer labels evident. The bathroom featured a soaking tub big enough for 3 people and a shower with multiple heads. In Jamie's nursery, I discovered that the clothes in his dresser were not only his current size, but also the next 2 sizes up, organized by age. The refrigerator contained organic baby food, freshly made, in glass containers labeled with ingredients. The level of detail was both impressive and unsettling. How long had Dominic been planning this? It seemed impossible that he'd arranged all this in the 3 days since our meeting. At precisely 7 o'clock, the elevator announced an arrival. I stood in the living room, Jamie on my hip, my heart racing as Dominic Sartori stepped into the apartment. He wore a dark suit, no tie, his collar open to reveal the hollow of his throat. He carried 2 bags that smelled deliciously of spices and garlic. "Elena," he said, his dark eyes moving over me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Then his gaze shifted to Jamie, and something in his expression softened fractionally. "And James, how are you settling in? It's overwhelming," I admitted, watching as he moved confidently through the apartment to the kitchen, setting the bags on the counter. "You'll adjust," he said, removing containers from the bags. "I brought dinner from Elysium. I thought you might prefer to eat here tonight rather than go out." I moved closer, keeping the kitchen island between us. This is all too much. The apartment, the clothes. How did you even know my sizes? Dominic looked up, his expression unreadable. "I told you, Elena. I make it my business to know things." He gestured to the dining table by the window. "Shall we eat? The chef prepared his signature pasta for you, and..." He reached into one of the bags and withdrew a smaller container. Organic pureed vegetables for James. The normalcy of sharing dinner with this enigmatic man was surreal. He asked about my day, about Jamie's routine, making small talk as if we were old friends while I struggled to reconcile the luxurious surroundings with my previous life. "Tomorrow," he said as we finished eating, Jamie now dozing against my shoulder. "You'll begin your duties as my personal assistant. Gray will arrive at 8 to take you to my office. A nanny will come to care for James." "A nanny?" I tensed. I don't know about leaving Jamie with a stranger. Something dangerous flashed in Dominic's eyes. "Mrs. Winters has worked for me for 15 years. She raised my sister's children. She is completely trustworthy." The possessive edge in his voice made me swallow whatever protest I was about to make. Instead, I asked, "What exactly will my job entail?" Dominic leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Initially, you'll manage my schedule, correspondence, travel arrangements. As you prove yourself, your responsibilities will expand." He paused, his gaze intense. "I have many business interests, Elena, some more public than others." A warning prickled at the back of my mind. "What kind of business interests? Import, export, real estate, restaurants, private security?" He waved a hand dismissively. "The specifics aren't important yet." I shifted Jamie to my other shoulder, his warm weight anchoring me. "And the salary? The benefits? Is there a contract?" A smile curved Dominic's lips. "Eager to discuss business already. Good." He reached into his jacket and withdrew a folded document, sliding it across the table. "Your employment contract. The salary is as we discussed, 50,000 more than your previous combined income. Full benefits for both you and Jamie. A clothing allowance, use of a company car, all spelled out there." I glanced at the contract, the legal language swimming before my tired eyes. "I should have a lawyer look at this, by all means." He stood, buttoning his jacket in one fluid motion. "Though I assure you it's quite standard. apart from the confidentiality clauses. Confidentiality clauses? I frowned. For a personal assistant position? Dominic moved around the table, coming to stand beside me. He reached out, one finger gently brushing against Jamie's soft cheek. The casual possessiveness of the gesture made my breath catch. As I said, Elena, I have many business interests. Discretion is paramount. His eyes met mine, dark and impenetrable. But there's one matter we haven't yet discussed. Your son's father. My arms tightened instinctively around Jamie. That's personal. Not anymore. Dominic's voice hardened. His name. Now. Something in his tone made refusal seem dangerous. Michael Delaney. But he's not in our lives anymore. He made that clear. Did he now? Dominic's expression darkened. And what exactly did he take from you, besides his presence? I frowned. What do you mean? Your voice message mentioned he was ghosting on child support. But there was something else, wasn't there? His eyes bored into mine, seeing too much. Something of value. My heart hammered against my ribs. How could you possibly know about that? Dominic smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. Let's just say Michael Delaney has made himself known to me in the past. In an unfavorable way. The implications of his words sent ice through my veins. Who are you, really? I told you. A businessman with diverse interests. He reached out, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from my face, the touch sending an involuntary shiver down my spine. Sign the contract, Elena, for Jamie's sake. I looked down at my sleeping son, then back at Dominic, whose dark eyes held promises and threats in equal measure. And if I don't? His expression hardened. Then you return to your old apartment, to your eviction notice, to choosing between paying rent and feeding your son. He paused, his voice softening slightly. I'm offering you security, Elena. Protection. For both of you. Protection from what? From men like Michael Delaney. He stepped closer, his scent enveloping me. From a world that doesn't care whether a single mother and her child survive or not. His voice dropped lower. I care, Elena. Perhaps more than I should. The intensity in his eyes made me take a step back. I need time to think, of course. He moved toward the elevator, but paused before pressing the button. 1 week's trial. No contract yet. See if the position suits you. His eyes held mine. But Elena? Don't make the mistake of thinking you can walk away easily. Not now that I've found you. The elevator doors closed on his enigmatic smile, leaving me alone in an apartment that suddenly felt like the most beautiful cage imaginable. Jamie stirred against my shoulder, whimpering softly in his sleep, and I pressed my lips to his head. It's okay, baby, I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I believed it myself. We're going to be okay. But as I moved through the luxurious apartment that night, putting Jamie to bed in his perfect nursery, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd stepped willingly into a spider's web, drawn by the promise of security, blind to the predator waiting at its center. The first week working for Dominic Sartori passed in a dizzying blur. Each morning, Gray would arrive at 8 to drive me to Dominic's office, an entire floor in a gleaming downtown skyscraper with his name on it. Mrs. Winters, a stern but kind-eyed woman in her 60s, would arrive at the same time to care for Jamie. Despite my initial reservations, Jamie had taken to her immediately, and the way her professional demeanor softened when he smiled at her had eased my concerns. My duties were straightforward enough at first, managing Dominic's calendar, fielding calls, arranging meetings. His legitimate businesses appeared to be thriving. Elysium was just one of 6 high-end restaurants he owned throughout the city. He had real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and shares in everything from tech startups to pharmaceutical companies. But there were oddities I couldn't ignore. The locked room in his office suite that I wasn't allowed to enter. The meetings scheduled only as private business with no names attached. The way certain people, hard-faced men with watchful eyes, would arrive without appointments and be immediately shown into his office, where the soundproofing ensured I heard nothing of their conversations. And then there were the moments when Dominic would look at me with that possessive intensity that made my skin flush hot and cold at once. The casual touches that lingered a second too long, the way his eyes tracked my movements when he thought I wasn't aware. You're adapting well, he remarked on Friday afternoon, appearing silently beside my desk as I finished typing an email to his attorney. I startled, nearly knocking over my coffee. "You move very quietly for a man your size," I said before I could stop myself. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. Years of practice. He leaned against my desk, close enough that I caught the now familiar scent of his cologne. "Are you and Jamie settling in at the Archer?" I nodded, trying to ignore how his proximity made my pulse quicken. "It's still an adjustment. But Jamie loves the space. And you? Do you find your accommodation satisfactory?" There was something in his tone, an underlying current I couldn't quite decipher. "It's beautiful," I admitted. "More than I ever thought I'd have." His dark eyes studied me. "Yet you seem unsettled." I hesitated, weighing my words carefully. "I'm grateful for the opportunity, but I still don't understand why you chose me, or how you knew so much about me before we even met. Perhaps I saw something in you that I needed." His gaze was intense, searching. Loyalty, resilience, the fierce protectiveness of a mother. For an assistant job? For something more valuable? He straightened, checking his watch. "It's nearly 5. Gray will take you home. I have a business dinner tonight, but tomorrow evening I'd like you and Jamie to join me for dinner at my home." It wasn't a request. "Your home?" "Unless you have other plans?" The slight arch of his eyebrow made it clear he knew I didn't. "No," I said quietly. "No other plans." "Good." He reached out, his fingers brushing against my cheek so briefly I might have imagined it. 7 o'clock. Gray will collect you. That night, as Jamie slept in his perfect nursery, I paced the living room of our luxury apartment, my thoughts racing. I'd spent a week in Dominic Sartori's world, and the glimpses I'd caught behind his carefully constructed facade left me with more questions than answers. On impulse, I opened my laptop and searched his name. The results were what I'd expect for a successful businessman: articles about restaurant openings, quotes in business publications, photos at charity galas, but nothing personal. No mention of family beyond a sister living abroad. No scandals. No hint of anything beneath the polished exterior. I dug deeper, searching variations of his name, his businesses. An hour into my research, a pattern began to emerge. Reports of business rivals suddenly selling their holdings to Sartori Enterprises after personal difficulties. Restaurants that had refused his purchase offers suffering mysterious health code violations or electrical fires before eventually closing. The word Mafia appeared nowhere. Yet the shadowy outlines of organized crime seemed to hover just beyond the pixels on my screen. A knock at my door startled me so badly I slammed my laptop shut. Heart pounding, I moved to the entryway, checking the security monitor. Phillips, the concierge, stood in the hallway holding a large envelope. I opened the door, forcing a smile. "Phillips, is everything all right?" "Perfectly, Ms. Riley. Mr. Sartori asked me to deliver this to you personally." He handed me a heavy cream-colored envelope with my name written on it in elegant script. "At 11 at night?" I asked, unable to keep the suspicion from my voice. Phillips's expression remained professionally neutral. "Mr. Sartori's instructions often come at unusual hours. Will there be anything else?" I shook my head, thanking him before closing the door and turning the envelope over in my hands. My name looked stark against the rich paper, the handwriting distinctively masculine. I broke the seal and withdrew a single sheet of paper. "Elena, I trust your first week has met expectations. Enclosed you'll find your first week's salary in cash as promised. The contract remains available for your signature whenever you're ready. I look forward to dinner tomorrow. Wear the blue dress in the back of your closet. It matches your eyes. DS." I turned the envelope upside down, and a stack of $100 bills fell onto my coffee table. I counted them with trembling fingers. $5,000 for 1 week's work. More than I'd made in 2 months at my previous jobs combined. The money should have been reassuring. Instead, it felt like another silken strand in the web being spun around me. And the comment about the blue dress. I hadn't even noticed it among the dozens of designer clothes that had appeared in my closet. I slept fitfully that night, dreaming of dark eyes watching me from shadows. The next evening, I found the blue dress exactly where Dominic had said it would be, A midnight blue silk that flowed like water through my fingers. The tag was still attached, a designer name I recognized from magazines, with a price that made me gasp. I almost chose something else out of sheer defiance, but something told me Dominic Sartori wasn't a man who appreciated defiance. Gray arrived precisely at 6:30, Mrs. Winters appearing simultaneously to watch Jamie for the evening. "Will I be late?" I asked her anxiously, kissing Jamie's forehead as she took him from me. "Mr. Sartori said to take all the time you need with James," she replied, her expression softening as Jamie reached for her silver hair. "He understands the importance of routine for children." The drive to Dominic's home took us out of the city, up winding roads that climbed into the exclusive hills overlooking the skyline. We passed through a gate with armed guards, then continued up a private drive lined with mature trees until we reached a modern mansion of glass, steel, and stone perched on the hillside. Gray opened my door, leading me to the entrance where Dominic himself waited, rather than a butler or staff member as I'd expected. He wore dark pants and a crisp white shirt open at the collar, more casual than I'd seen him at the office, but no less imposing. "Elena." His eyes swept over me, lingering on the blue dress. "You look lovely." "Thank you," I said, suddenly acutely aware of how the silk clung to my curves. "Your home is beautiful. Come." He offered his arm, a strangely old-fashioned gesture that caught me off guard. "Let me show you around." The interior was as impressive as I'd expected. Soaring ceilings, museum-quality art, furnishings that managed to be both minimal and luxurious. But unlike the sterile showcases of wealth I'd imagined, there was a warmth to the space, particularly in the kitchen where copper pots hung above a massive island, and the scent of garlic and herbs filled the air. "You cook?" I couldn't keep the surprise from my voice as he led me to the island where ingredients were already prepped. "When time permits." He handed me a glass of wine, his fingers brushing against mine in that deliberate way that sent electricity up my arm. "It's a form of meditation for me." I sipped the wine, rich and velvety, undoubtedly expensive, and watched as he moved with unexpected grace around the kitchen, his strong hands chopping, stirring, adjusting heat with the confidence of someone who actually enjoyed cooking, rather than just showing off. "Tell me about Jamie's father," he said suddenly, his back to me as he added wine to a simmering pan. I tensed. "I thought we covered that. You gave me his name." Dominic turned, his dark eyes boring into mine. "But not the story, not what he took from you." Something in his tone made refusal seem unwise. "It's not particularly original. Boy meets girl, boy charms girl, girl gets pregnant, boy vanishes. And the theft?" His voice hardened. I looked down at my wine. "How do you know about that?" "Answer the question, Elena." I took a deep breath. Before he left, he emptied our joint savings account, almost $20,000 I'd been saving for years, my safety net. I swallowed hard at the memory, and he took my grandmother's ring, family heirloom, the only thing of value she left me. Dominic was silent for a long moment, his jaw tight, a muscle ticking in his cheek. "Did you report the theft?" "The bank said I couldn't prove it wasn't authorized since we shared the account." "And the ring?" I shrugged, the old pain still sharp, his word against mine. "The police weren't interested." He turned back to the stove, his movements now precise, controlled, as if holding something powerful in check. "And you haven't seen him since?" "No." I hesitated, though sometimes I feel like someone's watching me, following me. It started a few months after Jamie was born. Dominic went utterly still. "And you didn't think to mention this?" "Mention what?" "A feeling? Glimpses of someone who might be no one?" I shook my head. "I thought it was just paranoia. Single mom, alone with a baby, exhausted all the time." He moved around the island until he stood directly in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his gaze. "Listen to me very carefully, Elena. If you ever feel that way again," watched, followed, "you tell me immediately. Day or night. Do you understand?" The intensity in his voice sent a chill down my spine. "Yes." "Good." He reached out, his fingers tracing the line of my jaw. "I protect what's mine." The possessive statement hung in the air between us. I should have been offended, should have corrected him that I wasn't his in any sense, but something in his touch, in the dark heat of his gaze, kept the words locked in my throat. He stepped back, returning to the stove as if the charged moment had never happened. "Dinner's almost ready. Would you set the table? Everything's in that drawer." We ate at a table positioned to maximize the view of the city lights spread below us, the food exquisite, the wine flowing freely. Dominic was an attentive host, keeping the conversation light, asking about my childhood, my dreams before life had intervened. "And what about you?" I asked as we finished dessert, a decadent chocolate creation he'd somehow whipped up between courses. "You know everything about me, but I know almost nothing about you." A shadow crossed his face. "There's not much to tell. Everyone has a story," I pressed, emboldened by the wine and the strange intimacy of sitting in his home. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slightly, as if coming to a decision. "My parents died when I was 12. Car accident. My sister and I went to live with my uncle." His voice took on a harder edge. "He was not a kind man, but he taught me about power, about taking what you want from the world before it takes from you." "I'm sorry about your parents," I said softly. "It was a long time ago." He refilled my wine glass. By 18, I'd learned enough from my uncle to strike out on my own. By 25, I'd surpassed him. By 30, I'd built an empire. A cold smile touched his lips. "He died suddenly last year. Heart attack," they said. The way he said it made me wonder if it had been a heart attack at all. I set down my glass, suddenly aware of how isolated we were up here on his private hillside. "It's getting late," I said. "I should get back to Jamie." "Of course." He stood, offering his hand to help me up. "Family comes first, always." As we walked to the front door, his hand rested lightly on the small of my back, the heat of it burning through the thin silk of my dress. At the threshold, he stopped, turning me to face him. "The contract," he said. "Have you decided?" I looked up at him, this dangerous, enigmatic man who had swept into my life like a storm, upending everything. "I still have questions. Ask them." His hand remained on my back, holding me in place. "The truth, Dominic. Who are you really? What do you really want from me?" His dark eyes held mine, and for once I glimpsed something real beneath the carefully controlled surface. A hunger. A need that made my breath catch. "I'm a man who sees what he wants and takes it," he said, his voice low. "And what I want, Elena, is you. In my life. Under my protection." Before I could respond, his hand slid up my back to cup the nape of my neck, and he leaned down, his lips claiming mine in a kiss that started gentle but quickly blazed into something fierce and possessive. Against all reason, I found myself responding, my body arching into his, my hands gripping the front of his shirt. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were dark with desire and something else, something almost like triumph. "Think about the contract," he murmured against my lips. "But know this, Elena. Whether you sign it or not, you're already mine. You've been mine since I heard your voice that night, heard the fear in it, heard your son crying." His thumb traced my lower lip. "I don't let go of what's mine, ever." The kiss haunted me all weekend. I'd feel the phantom pressure of his lips, the heat of his hands, at random moments, while feeding Jamie, while watching the sunset over the city from our new apartment, while lying awake in my too large bed. By Monday morning, I was exhausted from the endless circle of my thoughts, questioning my judgment, my sanity, my growing attraction to a man who clearly lived in the shadows. I signed the contract, not because of the kiss, or the luxury, or even the money, though all were powerful incentives. I signed because for the first time since Jamie was born, I felt safe, protected, as if the weight I'd been carrying alone had been lifted by hands much stronger than mine. Dominic's expression when I handed him the signed document Monday morning was one of satisfaction rather than surprise, as if he'd never doubted my decision. He locked the contract in his desk drawer without even looking at it. "You've made the right choice, Elena," he said, his eyes holding mine with that now familiar intensity, "for both yourself and Jamie." "I need to understand what I'm getting into," I replied, finding courage I didn't know I possessed. "The whole truth, Dominic, not just the parts you want me to see." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slightly. "Fair enough. Tonight, after work. There's something I need to show you. I expected him to take me to another office, perhaps show me financial records or business plans. Instead, after Jamie had been put to bed and Mrs. Winters had settled in the guest room to monitor him, Dominic led me to a sleek black car waiting outside the Archer. "Where are we going?" I asked as he opened the passenger door for me. "To see the other side of my business," he replied, his expression unreadable in the dim light. We drove through progressively rougher neighborhoods, the gleaming towers of downtown giving way to industrial zones, and then to areas where boarded-up windows and graffiti-covered walls spoke of urban decay. Dominic navigated with the confidence of someone intimately familiar with streets most people would avoid after dark. He pulled up outside what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse, but the presence of two broad-shouldered men standing guard at a side entrance told a different story. They nodded respectfully as Dominic approached, one moving to open the door without a word being spoken. Inside, the warehouse had been converted into some sort of underground club. Music pulsed from hidden speakers, low enough for conversation, but with a beat that vibrated through my bones. Well-dressed people clustered around tables, some playing cards, others engaged in quiet conversation. A bar ran along one wall, staffed by bartenders in crisp white shirts. "What is this place?" I asked, staying close to Dominic's side, as numerous eyes tracked our progress through the room. "One of my more lucrative ventures," he replied, his hand resting possessively on the small of my back. "Private gambling, by invitation only." "Is it legal?" His lips curved in a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Not entirely." He guided me through the main room to a door at the back, guarded by another stern-faced man who stepped aside immediately. Beyond was a smaller room with a large round table where 6 men sat playing poker, stacks of chips piled in front of them. They looked up as we entered, and I felt the weight of their assessment, their eyes moving over me in a way that made me instinctively move closer to Dominic. "Gentlemen," Dominic said, his voice carrying a subtle edge of authority that instantly commanded attention. "Continue your game. I'm just showing Ms. Riley around." One of the men, older than the others with silver at his temples, smiled thinly. "So, this is the new assistant we've heard about. The single mother." The way he said it made my skin crawl. Dominic's arm slid around my waist, pulling me firmly against his side in a gesture that was unmistakably possessive. "Ms. Riley is under my protection, Romano." Dominic's voice was pleasant, but I felt the tension in his body, like a predator prepared to strike. "I trust that's understood." The man, Romano, raised his hands in a conciliatory gesture, though his eyes remained cold. "Perfectly clear, Sartori. No disrespect intended." Dominic nodded once, then guided me from the room, his grip on my waist not relaxing until we were back in the main area. He led me to a private corner booth where a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses awaited. "You arranged this in advance," I said, as he poured the champagne. "You knew I'd sign the contract today." I was confident. He handed me a glass, his fingers brushing against mine. "What do you think of my establishment?" I looked around at the illicit gambling, the expensive clothes, the undercurrent of danger. "I think it explains a lot about you." I met his gaze. "You're not just a businessman, are you?" "I'm many things, Elena." He sipped his champagne, his dark eyes never leaving mine. "A restaurateur, a real estate developer, and yes, someone who operates in areas outside the strict confines of the law. A criminal," I said bluntly. "A man who creates order and chaos." He set his glass down. "The world isn't black and white, Elena. There are necessary shadows. I work within them. Why show me this? Why risk exposing yourself?" He leaned forward, close enough that I could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. "Because I need you to understand exactly who I am, what I am. The contract you signed, it binds you to more than just a job. It binds you to me, to my world." A chill ran through me despite the warmth of the room. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means you'll see things, hear things, that exist outside the boundaries of your previous life." His voice dropped lower. "It means your loyalty to me must be absolute. It means that you and Jamie are now under my protection, permanently." "And if I wanted to leave?" I asked. my voice barely above a whisper. His expression hardened. That wouldn't be possible. The reality of my situation crashed over me like a wave. I'd willingly walked into a cage, lured by security and comfort, only now understanding that the door had locked behind me. Dominic must have seen the realization in my eyes because his hand covered mine, his touch unexpectedly gentle. Don't look so frightened, Elena. I have no intention of harming you. Quite the opposite. His thumb stroked over my knuckles. Everything I've done since hearing your voice that night has been to secure your safety, yours and Jamie's. Why? I pulled my hand away. Why us? Why me? A shadow crossed his face. Let's just say I recognize vulnerability when I see it. I know what it's like to be alone, unprotected, at the mercy of a world that doesn't care whether you survive or not. Before I could respond, a commotion broke out near the entrance. Dominic was instantly alert, his body tensing as he looked over my shoulder. His expression changed from curiosity to cold fury in the space of a heartbeat. Stay here, he ordered, sliding from the booth. Don't move. I watched as he strode across the room toward the source of the disturbance, his entire demeanor transformed. Gone was the smooth businessman, replaced by something more dangerous, more primal. The crowd parted for him like water before a shark. At the entrance, 2 of the security guards were restraining a man who struggled in their grip. Even from a distance, there was something familiar about him. Something that made my blood run cold. As Dominic approached, the man looked up, and even in the dim light, I recognized him. Michael, Jamie's father. My body moved before my mind could process what I was seeing. I was halfway across the room when Dominic noticed me. The look he gave me should have stopped me in my tracks. A warning, a command to retreat. But I kept going until I stood beside him, facing the man who had abandoned me and stolen everything I had. Michael looked terrible, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, clothes rumpled. When he saw me, his expression shifted from anger to shock. Elena? His voice was hoarse. What the hell are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, I replied, aware of Dominic's rigid posture beside me, the coiled tension in his body. You know each other. Not a question from Dominic, but a statement loaded with dangerous implications. Michael's eyes darted between us, widening as understanding dawned. You're with him now? Jesus, Elena, do you have any idea who this man is? I know exactly who he is. The words came out stronger than I felt. He's the one who's been taking care of your son while you've been gone. Michael flinched as if I'd struck him. I can explain everything. I never meant to. Enough. Dominic's voice cut through the air like a blade. Take him to the office, he instructed the guards. Ms. Riley and I will join you shortly. As they dragged Michael away, Dominic turned to me, his expression thunderous. I told you to stay put. That's Jamie's father, I said, trembling now with the shock of the confrontation. What is he doing here? How did he find me? He didn't find you, Dominic said, his jaw tight. He found me. Or rather, my men found him, as they've been instructed to do for the past week. His eyes held mine. Remember when you told me you sometimes felt followed? It wasn't paranoia, Elena. Michael Delaney has been stalking you since shortly after Jamie was born. The room seemed to tilt under my feet. What? No, that's not possible. He left. He abandoned us. Yes, he did. With your money and your grandmother's ring. Dominic's hand closed around my upper arm, steadying me, but he came back. Watched you from a distance, followed you to work, to the diner, to your apartment. How do you know this? My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Because the moment you told me about him, I put men on finding him. Dominic's expression was cold, calculating. What I didn't expect was for him to show up here, trying to see me. Apparently he recognized my car outside your building and has been looking for a way to approach me ever since. Why would he want to see you? Dominic's smile was devoid of warmth. Let's find out, shall we? The office was at the back of the warehouse. A surprisingly well-appointed room with leather furniture and a large desk. Michael sat in a chair, the guards positioned behind him. He looked up when we entered, his eyes locking on mine with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. 5 minutes, Dominic said to the guards. Wait outside. When the door closed behind them, Dominic moved to lean against the desk. positioning himself between Michael and me. "Explain yourself, Delaney. Why have you been following Ms. Riley? Why were you looking for me?" Michael swallowed hard, his eyes darting between us. "You don't understand. I had to leave. They gave me no choice." "Who gave you no choice?" I demanded. The anger I'd suppressed for months finally breaking free. "Who forced you to steal my savings?" "My grandmother's ring?" "The ring was collateral," Michael said, his voice cracking. "The money, too. I owed people. Dangerous people. They threatened you and the baby if I didn't pay. So your solution was to steal from me and disappear?" The betrayal stung fresh, even after all this time. "I was trying to protect you," Michael insisted. "I've been watching over you, making sure they didn't come after you next. When I saw Sartori's car at your building, I thought..." He trailed off, looking at Dominic with naked fear in his eyes. "You thought I was there to collect on your debt?" Dominic finished, his voice dangerously soft. "Tell me, Delaney, who exactly did you owe money to?" Michael hesitated, then whispered, "Romano. Victor Romano." The name struck a chord, the older man at the poker table who had commented on me, who Dominic had warned off. I looked at Dominic, whose expression had turned to granite. "And the debt?" Dominic pressed. "How much?" 15,000, Michael admitted, looking down, plus interest. "It's over 30 now. I can't pay it. That's why I came looking for you. Everyone knows you're the only one who can challenge Romano's authority in this city." Dominic was silent for a long moment, his eyes calculating. Finally, he straightened. "Where is the ring?" Michael blinked, caught off guard by the question. "What?" "Elena's grandmother's ring. Where is it?" "Romano has it," Michael said, his voice small. "Like I said, collateral." Dominic nodded once, as if something had been confirmed. "Wait here," he instructed, then took my arm and led me from the office, closing the door behind us. In the hallway, he turned to me, his expression softer than I'd expected. "Are you all right?" I wasn't sure how to answer. My mind was spinning with revelations. Michael's debt, his claim that he'd been protecting us, the involvement of Romano. "I don't know," I admitted. "This is all overwhelming." Dominic's hand came up to cup my cheek, his touch surprisingly gentle for a man I'd just watched transform into something dangerous. "Listen to me, Elena. I'm going to take care of this, all of it. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" I looked into his dark eyes, searching for reassurance in their depths. Despite everything I'd learned tonight, or perhaps because of it, I found myself nodding. "Yes." His thumb stroked my cheekbone, a tender gesture at odds with the controlled violence I sensed beneath his surface. "Good. Now I need you to go home to Jamie. Gray is waiting outside. He'll take you back to the Archer." "What about Michael?" "Leave Michael to me." Something cold flashed in his eyes. "He and I have some business to discuss." I should have been frightened by the implications. Instead, I felt a strange sense of security, knowing Dominic was handling the chaos Michael had brought into my life. "Don't hurt him," I said, though without much conviction. "He's still Jamie's father. I'll keep that in mind." Dominic leaned down, pressing his lips briefly to mine in a kiss that felt like a promise and a claim all at once. "Go home, Elena. I'll come to you when it's done." Gray drove me back to the Archer in silence, but I felt his occasional glances in the rearview mirror. He knew something significant had happened tonight, something that had shifted the delicate balance of my new life with Dominic. "He'll be all right, Ms. Riley," he said as we pulled up to the building, the first personal comment he'd ever made to me. "Mr. Sartori knows what he's doing." I nodded, unsure whether he meant Dominic would be all right, or Michael, or me. Perhaps all of us. Mrs. Winters reported that Jamie had slept peacefully all evening. After she left, I checked on him, watching his tiny chest rise and fall in the dim glow of his nightlight. How could something so small, so innocent, be at the center of such a complex web? I brushed my fingers against his soft cheek, overwhelmed by love and fear in equal measure. I tried to sleep, but found myself pacing the apartment instead, replaying the night's events in my mind. Michael's appearance had torn open wounds I thought had scarred over, bringing back the pain of his betrayal along with new questions. Had he really been watching over us all this time? Had his disappearance truly been an attempt to protect us? And what would Dominic do with him now? It was nearly 3 a.m. when the private elevator hummed to life. I stood in the center of the living room, my heart pounding as Dominic stepped out. He'd removed his jacket, and his white shirt was open at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. He looked tired but composed. "Is Jamie asleep?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded. "For hours now." I searched his face, looking for clues. "Michael?" "Alive, if that's what you're asking." He moved to the bar cart in the corner, pouring himself a measure of amber liquid. "Would you like one?" "Please." He handed me a glass, his fingers brushing against mine in that deliberate way that sent electricity through my body despite the circumstances. We moved to the sofa, sitting close enough that I could feel the heat of him beside me. "What happened?" I asked, taking a sip of the scotch, welcoming the burn. Dominic studied his glass. "Michael Delaney has been living in fear for nearly a year. He's been staying in cheap motels, working under-the-table jobs, trying to stay one step ahead of Romano's men while keeping an eye on you and Jamie." "You believe him?" "His fear was genuine enough." Dominic's expression hardened, and his debt to Romano checks out. He borrowed money for some ill-conceived business venture, couldn't pay it back, and the interest kept mounting. "So he stole from me instead," I said bitterly. "He claims Romano's men threatened you and the baby directly if he didn't pay something immediately. Your savings and the ring were his way of buying time." Dominic took a sip of his scotch. "He's weak, Elena. A coward who took the easy way out. But I don't think he intended to abandon you permanently." I let that sink in, uncertain how to feel. The anger was still there, but tempered now with a complexity I hadn't anticipated. Where is he now? On his way out of the city. I've arranged for him to disappear. New identity, new location. Far from here. Dominic's eyes met mine. He won't be coming back. Not ever. A tangle of emotions knotted in my chest. Relief, sorrow, a strange sense of loss for something that had never really existed. Did you threaten him?" Dominic's smile was cold. "I didn't have to. The choice was simple. Disappear willingly with enough money to start over, or disappear permanently." He reached into his pocket and withdrew something small. "He did ask me to give you this." My breath caught as he placed my grandmother's ring in my palm. The familiar weight of it, the worn gold band with its modest diamond, brought tears to my eyes. "How did you get this?" I whispered. "I paid his debt to Romano." The ring was part of the negotiation. His voice was casual, as if he hadn't just spent tens of thousands of dollars to retrieve a piece of jewelry whose monetary value was minimal compared to his wealth. I closed my fingers around the ring, overcome. "Why would you do that?" "Because it matters to you." He said it simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "And what matters to you matters to me now." I looked at him through tear-blurred eyes. "I don't understand you, Dominic. Any of this." He set his glass down and took my free hand, his thumb stroking over my knuckles. "What don't you understand? Why me? Why go to all this trouble for a woman you barely know? For her child? There are thousands of single mothers struggling in this city. What made me different?" Dominic was silent for a moment, his expression softening in a way I'd rarely seen. "That night, when I heard your voice message, there was something in it that resonated with me. The vulnerability, yes, but also the strength. The determination to protect your child at all costs." He paused, his jaw tightening. "My mother had that same quality. Before she died, she fought like hell to keep my sister and me safe, to give us a future. It was the most personal thing he'd ever shared with me. I held my breath, afraid to break the spell of his rare openness. When my parents died and we went to live with my uncle, that protection vanished," he continued, his voice taking on a harder edge. "We were at his mercy, and he had none. I swore then that I would never be vulnerable again, that I would build power enough to protect what was mine." His dark eyes held mine. "When I heard your voice that night, heard Jamie crying, something in me recognized something in you, a mirror of what I once was. Vulnerable, but fighting. So this was, what? Charity? Pity? I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. No, he said firmly, never that. His hand tightened on mine. It was recognition, connection. And yes, something more selfish. His gaze intensified. Possession, Elena. From the moment I heard your voice, I wanted you. In my life, under my protection. Mine. The possessiveness should have frightened me, should have sent me running. Instead, it ignited something in my core, a warmth that spread through me like wildfire. You can't just claim people, Dominic. Can't I? His smile was dangerous, seductive. I've built my empire on taking what I want. And I want you. I want Jamie. I want the family I never thought I'd have. The word family hung in the air between us, loaded with meaning. Is that what this is? You're... what? Acquiring a ready-made family? I'm protecting what's mine, he corrected, reaching up to brush a strand of hair from my face. The fact that I want you, desire you, is a separate but equally powerful motivation. My cheeks flushed hot at the naked hunger in his eyes. And what about what I want? Tell me what you want, Elena, he said, his voice dropping lower. Tell me honestly. I looked at him. This dangerous, complex man who had swept into my life like a storm, upending everything, who had shown me both darkness and unexpected tenderness, who had retrieved my grandmother's ring and banished the shadow of Michael from our lives. Security, I admitted. Safety for Jamie. A future without constant fear. I took a deep breath. And you. God help me. I want you too. His eyes darkened with desire at my confession. He leaned forward, his hand sliding to the nape of my neck, pulling me toward him until our lips met in a kiss that started tender, but quickly blazed into something fierce and demanding. I melted into him, my body responding with an intensity that both thrilled and terrified me. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, he pressed his forehead to mine. Stay with me, Elena, he murmured. Be mine. Let me be a father to Jamie. Let me give you both everything you deserve. Even knowing what you are, I whispered. What you do. He pulled back slightly, his expression serious. I won't lie to you. Ever. The world I inhabit has shadows, dangers. But I swear to you that you and Jamie will only ever know the light parts of it. My protection will be absolute, and if I say yes, I searched his face. What then? Then we build a life together. His hand caressed my cheek. On your terms, at your pace. I'm a patient man when the prize is worth waiting for. I thought of the life he was offering. Security, luxury, his fierce protection. I thought of Jamie, growing up with a father figure who would move heaven and earth to keep him safe. I thought of the darkness that surrounded Dominic, the violence I'd glimpsed beneath his controlled exterior. Could I reconcile these things? Could I build a life with a man who operated outside the boundaries of law, but had shown me more care and consideration than I'd ever known? In the end, the decision felt inevitable, as if I'd been moving toward this moment since that fateful voice message sent in exhausted desperation. Yes, I whispered, feeling as if I were stepping off a cliff and trusting him to catch me. Yes. The smile that spread across his face transformed him, erasing the hardness, revealing the man beneath the armor. He pulled me into his arms, holding me against his chest so tightly I could feel his heartbeat, strong and steady. You won't regret this, he murmured against my hair. I swear to you, Elena, you and Jamie will want for nothing. No one will ever hurt either of you again. In the soft light of my luxury apartment, with my grandmother's ring warm in my palm and Dominic's arms around me, I believed him. The world outside might be full of dangers, and the man holding me might be part of those dangers, but here, in this moment, I felt safer than I ever had. As if sensing my thoughts, Dominic tilted my chin up, his dark eyes meeting mine with an intensity that took my breath away. Mine, he whispered, the word both a claim and a promise, both of you. Always. And as his lips found mine again, sealing our future with a kiss that burned away all doubts, I surrendered to the truth that had been inevitable from the moment his name appeared on my phone screen. I was his. And somehow, against all odds, this dangerous, powerful man was mine as well.